This is the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. For everyone who's trying to learn Chinese or reaching for the next level, you came to the right place. I am your host, Jared Turner, and I live in the moment. By which I mean I don't think things through. My co-host is John Pasden, and he thinks it's ironic that only one company makes Monopoly. Let's get to it. Hey guys, this is Jared Turner joining you here from Utah in the United States.
And my name is John Pasden. I am in Shanghai, China, as usual. About to go on vacation, actually.
All right, John Pasden, about ready to go on vacation.
Yeah.
Going on vacation denotes traveling, yes?
Yeah, vacation is all about traveling, I think, if at all possible. At least that's one thing that I like to do and my family likes to do here in China. So we are traveling this summer as well.
Well, I imagine there are going to be a number of people who are going to be doing similar activities this summer, traveling, perhaps even to China.
Yeah, so that's something we thought it would be fun to talk about. Traveling to China, traveling within China, how that relates to learning Chinese, using Chinese, making mistakes in Chinese, but everything turning out okay and lots of learning happening.
Oh, yes. And make sure you emphasize those mistakes because they happen.
Yeah, they're kind of unavoidable for quite a while. Maybe they're unavoidable forever. But anyway, you can still have lots of fun, learn a lot, and have a great time.
Definitely. And I even say this, John, I've met people who are saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to China or I've gone to China. And, they don't really even speak Chinese, but you can still get around in China with, frankly, no Chinese, very little, right? But it definitely helps. And it definitely helps to make some great stories along the way.
Yeah, what I found is that no matter how little Chinese you have when you go to China, you will learn some Chinese in China. And then if you learn any Chinese before you go, you will use it and you'll learn more. But it seems like the people that do the best in China are the ones that learn a fair amount before they go and then they keep learning after they get to China.
Absolutely. And, we keep beating this drum, right? That you can use all your apps and everything, but in the moment, when you need it, when things are urgent, or you're trying to meet somebody or communicate or negotiate or figure something out, actually having those Chinese language skills of your own, whatever level they are, become invaluable.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some specific things you can learn, some different ways you can learn Chinese, and maybe even tell a story or two about some experiences we've had traveling in China.
Oh man, we've got stories. We can talk about stories, that's for sure.
I feel like we can't even remember half of our stories, but we can remember a couple. It should be enough to entertain you guys, I hope. Okay, so Jared, the first thing we want to talk about is place names. Because, if you're traveling around China, obviously you're going to places, you want to know their names. But even if you're just staying in Shanghai or Beijing or whatever, you want to be able to talk to people about other parts of China. Because if you at least know the names of these other places, when you meet people from those places, it actually really helps to make a connection.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about it. Your home country or hometown or state or wherever you are. I mean, when you meet somebody and oh yeah, I've been there. It's like, oh, wow. It's a nice connection. It's a nice thing. Or you even know where it is. And, I have a number of friends from Europe, and I know you do too, John. And there are times when you might meet somebody and they don't even know where that country is, right? But taking the time, to learn a little geography can go a long way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Chinese people, they don't expect you to know where their hometown is or to even know where their home province is. But if they mention the province and you're like, oh, I've been to this city, and it is actually in that province, then they're usually quite impressed and happy, and it makes an immediate connection.
And I'll say something about that. It always blows my mind, John, is, when I first got to China, this is a great story. Someone was like, hey, we need you to go on this business trip, next week. I'm like, okay, great. Where are we going? It's like, Wuhan. Nowadays, Wuhan is known as the place globally where, the first outbreak of COVID, right? But at the time, I had never even heard of it. I'm like, oh, Wuhan. I'm like, how big is that place? And they're like, oh, it's like 9 million people. And I'm like, what? But if you talk to some Chinese people, where are you from? And it's some town you've never heard of. And oh, well, how big is that? Oh, small town, only 2 million people, right?
Yeah.
That's so common around China.
Another thing is, when you're talking about these place names, you do kind of want to get the pronunciation right. I think there's one pair worth mentioning which is the provinces Shanxi and Shanxi, because they're actually two different provinces. I remember when I was first starting to learn Chinese and someone said they were from Shanxi, and I was like, oh, Xi'an. And it's like, no, that's Shanxi. But like, I didn't pick up on it at all. And I just kept talking about Xi'an, and they're just like, no, it happens. So like, when you actually get it right, you get a lot more points. But even if you get it wrong, at least you're having a conversation, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's one of those things, like if you do get it right, usually they're going to be even more impressed, right? Oh, you actually got that right.
Yeah, so that's not to say that you have to like go on this big Chinese geography course just to visit China, but it's just a nice thing. If you hadn't really thought about it, or, if you need to just review some place names a little bit, it does potentially go a long way.
But hey, one thing that does help is, most of us might happen to have a smartphone in our pocket and they tell you where they're from. You can look it up real quick. Maybe you're not right in the moment, but that's something I've always done, is that sometimes someone's from this area. And so maybe you can't just look it up and see, oh, it's around, how far away it is or something. And you have an opportunity to talk to that person again. It just gives you a little more context, and you can kind of build some geographical knowledge or something a little bit over time.
Yeah, I've done that too as well. It works really well, especially if you're like, using some Chinese app, you're in China, it's going to work a lot better.
Well, that's great. So going around and maybe learning some of these locations. But here's the thing is that, John, when you are thrown directly into the fire, right? You are now maybe traveling around some of these locations. You've got some of these training wheels off. You're now in the wild trying to learn Chinese or use your Chinese.
Yeah, and you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to know some things, and then something's going to happen, and you just don't know what's going on. And that's where you learn through experience.
I think there's two general aspects of this. Is like you're hearing stuff all the time, and you pretty much got no idea what people are saying. Or maybe you hear a word here or there, and you're like, pick something out of like just the crowd. Like they say this or that, and you can hear that. And then there's all these advertisements and signs and stuff, and the characters, most of them you don't even know, but you see a character here or there that, oh wait, I know that one.
Yeah, actually I have a little story about this. So like I had been in China for a year, and then I went back home to visit my family in the US, and then I went back, and my sister went back with me to travel around China together. And so my Chinese was, okay, kind of shaky, but basic conversations I could handle. So we got into Shanghai, but we needed to go to Hangzhou. And it was already kind of late at night, but I was pretty sure we could still get tickets from Shanghai to Hangzhou. So we went to the train station, and I was like, Hangzhou, 2张票, right? 2 tickets to Hangzhou. And then I was happy with myself, and they're like, oh, okay. But then they're like, blah, 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 blah. And I had no idea what they were saying. And I was just like nodding and being like, 2张票, right? And they're just like, okay. And they sold them to me. And they were pretty cheap, right? And so what I didn't realize was that they were warning me that if you get on this train, it's going to stop at every stop, and you're getting on at 12 and you're not going to arrive until 4 a.m. I got on like the farmer overnight, like vegetable delivery train. Oh man, it was so bad. My sister was so tired because this is after an international flight from the US to Shanghai. And then like we got in around like I think 9. So then we had to wait till midnight to get on the train, thinking that it was going to be a little over an hour, but it was 4 hours.
Oh man.
And like every stop was super loud as like, vegetables were being loaded on and off the train. Yeah, so I felt pretty bad about that. I learned something. My sister certainly never forgot that train ride either. But,
Wow.
It happens.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that one only happens once, and you're like, wait a second, these next time, these tickets are too cheap. Which train is this, right?
Yeah. I don't think the trains work quite the same way as they used to now, but that's always going to happen, right? You're prepared for the situation, and then something else comes up and they start saying something you don't understand. You just got to kind of roll with it and do your best.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I realized, John, is that after I was in China for about, I don't know, I think 6 months, 12 months. And at the beginning, I was focusing, of course, more on spoken oral Chinese. And I was learning some characters along the way. But I decided to, get a little more into literacy. And what I noticed that when I was in China and I was starting to really learn characters, I always describe this as like the streets became alive. Because before, characters, they look like spooky animals, especially when you don't know it. And you see a complicated character and you're like, oh, I don't even want to mess with that. But after you start to learn some of those and you're walking down the street, you start realizing, oh, wait a second. That's a barber shop. Oh, wait. I mean, I can visually see this as a fruit stand, but now I can see the character like, shui guo dian. Oh, that is a pharmacy. And you start like picking up some of these things. And because from the outside, it's not always easy to clearly understand, okay, what is this store? But that's something I've always loved. And when you start traveling around, if you have the opportunity to go to some different cities around China, there's some regional differences, of course. But when you start seeing some of those common things, you're like, oh, wait, I know what this shop is now.
And if you've taken the trouble to learn some place names, like we mentioned earlier, then when you go to train stations and airports, you're going to see a lot of that vocabulary too, which is always a nice little reward.
Something that comes to memory as well, John, about like characters and trying to just getting thrown in. I know that like in different areas, even like buses and the public transportation, I think in airports, there's more pinyin, there's more English in that. But like if you're traveling subway, yeah, they usually have English in that. But I've noticed like buses, man, like buses, it's like characters and that's it. And numbers.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you can't really see them. And then you have to depend on your listening or you have to ask somebody, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting how in some areas, like I know, well, in Shanghai, most of the buses are numbers and they might have some characters because they're going to this road. But like other cities, the buses, they're like number one road, but they'll like the Chinese characters, like someone, they don't even use the numbers. They'll use Chinese characters for numbers. And they'll say like, it's not say bus number this, but it's going like, number 2 road or the number 5 loop or something, the equivalent of that.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that can be tricky and where it's like, okay, I got to sit down here and I got to really figure out what the heck, what bus am I getting on? Otherwise, I'm going to be totally lost.
Okay, so the point of this story was don't get on a bus if you can't read, or buses are for intermediate and above.
It's riskier. Buses can be riskier. So you got to make sure like it's one of those things you get really thrown in, right? You can have your apps and stuff, but well, I guess you have your GPS. And I think that's the other thing about riding a bus too, is that it's a little more free form. It's not railroaded, so to speak, like riding the subway, but a bus, man. I mean, you're passing stuff and you're like, I don't know what that place is, or is this the right road? And I've never been here before. So
yeah, I actually do like to ride buses. I feel like it takes more courage to ride a bus because it looks like it's going where you want to go, and then it suddenly turns and it's going way in the wrong direction and you can't get off and you have no idea how you're going to get back. But you can have some good adventures taking buses, for sure.
yeah, in fact, I remember this one adventure I had when I got on this bus in Zhongshan Park, bus 96, I believe, right?
Oh, here we go again.
That's John. That reminds me of the day we met. That's
All
right.
Yes, Jared and I met on a bus in Shanghai.
That's right. It was the only seat left on the bus. It happened to be this foreigner guy because nobody else wanted to sit next to the foreigner. And I sat next to him and then kept bugging you, talking to you. And finally you took your earbuds out and you're like, all right, we'll talk.
And the rest is history.
Here we are.
Yes.
Pretty much. It's 15 years, I think. It's been 15 years, John. Anyway.
Actually, though, Jared, I do have a story about missing a bus in China.
Ooh.
And the consequences. All right. So it's kind of like 3 stories, but the beginning of this story, I was kind of hiking alone in Yunnan in an area called Xishuangbanna. It's like southern Yunnan. And I was going through like this countryside trek. Like there were no roads. There were just like trails. But it was like kind of a pretty well-known trail. Like it was in Lonely Planet and stuff. And I felt pretty confident that I could find it on my own. And so I was going through the countryside and you can see that Yunnan is starting to develop. This was way back in, I want to say 2002. And you could see that it was starting to develop and like hotels were going up, but there were still these little villages with like just local people just farming and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of poverty. I felt kind of bad actually, just being this tourist, just walking through their villages. Yeah, it didn't feel good. But anyway, I was on this trail. I got to finish the trek. And at one point I'm starting to get hungry and there's this old man and he sees me and he like motions to me and I go over there and I try to talk to him. He didn't actually speak Mandarin very well, but we kind of communicated. And he made it clear that like he
Mm-hmm.
could give me lunch. Did I want lunch? And I was like, oh, interesting. Like, what might I eat in the countryside of Yunnan? Like, we're pretty far from any kind of store or anything.
Yeah.
And I asked him how much, and he said 20, which it was probably a bit of a markup, but I was like, all right, that's cool, 20. All right. And so then he went off to his little, I hope it doesn't seem bad to call it a hut, but it was basically a hut. And he proceeded to make me instant noodles.
What?
I don't know. Maybe he thought instant noodles was what I would like, or I don't know. But that,
Fang bian
yeah,
mian.
yeah, that's what he made me. I mean, he added a few vegetables, but I was just like,
Well,
all right.
okay, better than a poke in the eye. Oh man. Oh wow. That's the big markup on that.
I felt like I should support these people if I'm just like, turning their backyard into my little trek. I should support them. But on the other hand, it was instant noodles, And
Yeah.
anyway, I realized that this trek was supposed to be 2 days. And the guy told me like, oh, if you need a place to stay tonight, you can stay here. And it's like in this hut. And I mean, I could have done it, but I knew I probably wouldn't really sleep. And I just started feeling bad about like the exploitative nature of the trail.
Yeah.
And I was just like, thanks. I'm just going to get going. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to make it through this 2-day trek in 1 day.
Uh-huh.
So I just started going really fast. And I made it to the very end of the trail at the very end of the first day, right as the last bus was pulling away.
Yeah. Oh no.
And like I was literally running after the bus trying to
Like,
flag it down,
no!
but they ignored me.
Yeah, I shouldn't even stop for those noodles, right?
It wasn't until just a little after that I realized that I could probably make it to the end of the trail on that day, right?
I see.
And so then I was at this bus stop area. Like, there's no real hotels. There's nowhere nice to stay there either. I don't need it to be nice, but just a little more, I don't know, giving me a little more security or something.
Yeah.
And then this car pulls up, this like black car with tinted windows, and there are these two guys in it. And I just, on an impulse, I was like, hey, are you guys going to, I forgot the name, but the nearby like city, not this little town, right?
Uh-huh.
And they were like, yeah, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, okay. So this was probably not a good idea, but I got in this car with these guys I didn't know. And so they're driving. It's now getting dark. And we're just driving and driving. And I remember the road. It was like this long, straight road, tree lined, no street lights, no lights anywhere.
Uh-huh.
Just this road, just going and going. And one of the guys is like, so you think we're going back to the city? And I was just like, what?
I hope so.
He's like, where do you think we're going? And I was just like, oh man, what is this? And so it's a kind of long story short. They were just messing with me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't understand everything because my Chinese wasn't that great at the time.
Uh-huh.
But I was talking to them and I don't know, they could have been lying. Clearly, they like to mess with me. But the story that I got out of them, which I think was probably true, was that they were sent from the city to collect gambling debts from people in that little town. And now they were going back to the city and they wanted me to hang out with them that night at some
Of
bar.
course.
And yeah, I think there were going to be drugs involved or something. And I was just like, nah.
And of course, they offered you cigarettes, of course, right?
Yeah, they wanted me to drink. They wanted me to cigarettes. Who knows what else?
Yeah.
And they did take me back to the city and nothing bad happened. But that was the last time I tried to do something like that.
Yeah. We'll make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, so I want to say don't hitchhike in China. It's not wise. And nowadays, I really don't think you'll have the same situation that I had anyway.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good story, man. That is a good story. But nowadays, aren't there like some equivalent of like a hitchhiking type apps where it's like, hey, find people who are going the same way and you kind of carpool?
Well, we call it rideshare.
Well, yeah.
And there's like apps and GPS and like things are tracked and stuff. It doesn't, nothing was tracked. I did I? I guess I had a Nokia maybe. I don't know. One of those old brick phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must have.
You must have something.
Yeah, those were different days, man. Different days. So I would say that I feel like it does pay to take risks when you're traveling, but not that kind of risk.
I think the closest thing I had once was a buddy of mine. We were taking a trip out to Wudangshan, which is kind of like the birthplace of Tai Chi or something. And this was years ago. And my Chinese was, again, a little bit like yours at the time. It was developing, let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
Got a late night train to this certain place. And he'd been around China a lot. And so I was just kind of following him and letting him take control and, get us there. And we got to the train station and he's like, we'll just find something that'll take us up to the city or up to the town, that's at the base of this touristy area. I'm like, okay. And you sure about it? He's like, yeah, don't worry. We'll get there. So we get out of the train station. And of course, you get flooded by these people like, they're speaking in Chinese. Oh, we can get you a taxi. We can get you a bus. We can get you here, blah, blah, blah. So he talks to this lady and evidently comes to some agreement. And so, all right, yeah. She's like, she can get us a bus. We're going to get a bus to this place. I'm like, this late? I mean, it's like, 11:30 at night. And he's like, yeah. So we jump in her car. I think it was like one of these mini buses. I mean, like minivan, but like little bread box trucks, right? And I mean, it's like the size of you can fit cram 8 people in there. And so there's 5 or 6 of us in this thing and this old guy's carting us around and we drive around for 10 minutes and we get on the freeway and we drive down the freeway for on the freeway for a few minutes. And then there's a really wide shoulder coming up here and he slows down and he pulls off the side of this freeway. Cars cruising by 80 miles an hour. And he says, all right, this is the spot. I'm like, what? He's like, yep, here we are. And the guy's like, hey, everybody get off. And we're like, okay, we get off on the side of the freeway. Mind you, we'd already paid this lady money. And so we get out. I'm like, what's going on? Yeah, just wait here. The bus is going to come. And so we wait there 10 minutes. And there were a couple other people with us. And I'm just like, what is going on here? This isn't a bus stop. There's nothing.
Did he leave or was he waiting with you?
No, the guy went off. He left. He's gone. And so we're just standing here. It was midnight, standing on the side of the freeway on a really wide shoulder, mind you, but no bus stop, anything, a few other people. And then sure enough, 10 minutes later, this bus slows down and pulls off to the side of the road. And it's there to pick us up. We got our tickets. We get on this bus and it's a sleeper bus. It's a sleeper bus. And you kind of have a very hard bed to be very generous. Cot would be also very generous. You have this.
Like a slat.
Yeah, there you go. More like it. And you can kind of sleep, you kind of stow some of your luggage above and below, and you can maybe sleep if you are very, very tired or are adept at doing that. And we were on a sleeper bus, and that took about 4 hours to get to the town we were going at. And so we got there very early morning and found some little small ramshackle hotel to stay in. And there we go. We did it. That was a crazy travel experience too. Now, if it was but me alone, I don't think I would have made it that night. Let's put it that way. Nowadays, I would have. I'd figure out how to make it. But, you got this variety of different travel options in China. And that never fails to amaze me, John.
Yeah.
But John, that also reminds me about our sponsor for this episode.
Yeah. So today's sponsor is All Set Learning. There's a new course by All Set Learning.
That's right. So tell me about that, John. I want to understand this is something new that you guys have developed.
Yeah. So this is something new for the summer. Like I said before, for a lot of people, summer is about travel. China is a great place to travel. But hey, if you can't travel, there's this new course called Beyond the Guidebook, a Chinese travel course. And it's kind of like this whole travel experience thing, but done virtually in lessons.
Oh, interesting. So walk me through it. Tell me what it's like.
Okay, so for this course, you get 8 live one-on-one lessons with a professional native Chinese teacher, and each lesson 60 minutes. And so it's mainly for intermediate learners, give or take. And every lesson takes one Chinese city, and then it goes deep into things like food, like choosing which sites, getting around the city, a little bit of history about the city maybe. The stuff that you might find in a guidebook, you might not. And your teacher sometimes might even be from that city.
Really? So tell me, what cities is this covering?
So it covers a lot of the big ones like Beijing, Xi'an, Chengdu, Guilin, Kunming, Xiamen, and some others. But also, each course comes with real travel dialogues related to the city, but then also related to anything you need to travel anywhere in China. So it includes things like checking into a hotel, ordering off the menu, asking directions. If it's in Beijing, you might be talking about hutong or something like that.
And you have mentioned this, but there's a mystery lesson. I'm intrigued.
Oh, yeah. So we added this Mang He Ke into it. So it's like this blind box lesson. So every course has at least one surprise city. It's somewhere that's not super well known, but it's like really interesting for foreign travelers, many of whom have never heard of it. And this lesson gets you into that place, includes pictures and other information about the city. And then the end of the course also has a review lesson, which pulls it all together.
It's kind of like a hidden gem in there. Okay, and for our listeners, what do you have for them?
All right, so if you're a listener of You Can Learn Chinese and you're interested in trying out this course, use the code TRAVEL, TRAVEL, at checkout, and you can get $10 off the course. So the link is in the show notes.
Well, that sounds awesome, John. Beyond the guidebook. So go check it out.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy it. Thanks, guys.
Well, John, getting back into the travel aspect, visiting China, one of my favorite things of China is the food.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Same as everybody, right?
I mean, yeah, it's got some great food. I talking to friends and associates here in the US, and they're like, oh, yeah, I like Chinese food. I'm like, yeah. Yeah. You got to go to China often to really experience some of that real Chinese food. I mean, there are some places here stateside and wherever. But this is the thing, if Dan and you know some of the real Chinese food that you can get in China, and you go to a Chinese food here and you can speak some Chinese, you can oftentimes talk to them and get that secret menu.
The secret menu, or the local specialty, as they might call it. Yeah, so no matter where you go, there's going to be some local food that is like especially good there. The locals love it, and you're probably going to want to try it. Well, it depends on what it is, right? But you definitely want to learn a bit of the language related to the local specialties. Don't forget to do that.
Yeah, usually what I say is I want their 当地特色, right? Their local special dish or special flavor. And I know whenever I've gone to any place around China and I've actually just asked people like, hey, what's kind of something special here, some special food. I shouldn't say I've never been disappointed. I've had some unique things, let's put it that way, but it's always been something where, I've never had this before. And it's crazy. I mean, you could go to these tiny places, towns of only 1 million people, right? And you're going to get you're trying to look for something that's local, something unique in that area. Chances are you're going to find it.
Yeah, and honestly, you don't need to have much vocabulary. Like one thing that I've done many times is you just like walk into one of these little restaurants and you're just like, 你好, and you point at some food and you're like, 这是什么?
What is this?
And they tell you what it is.
What is this?
And then you're
gosh.
like, oh, 我要这个.
Yeah,
and then,
there you go. It's that.
Like very basic. That's like, first semester Chinese. And they'll be happy that they see you like getting excited by something you see someone eating and that you want that. Hopefully you can avoid the situation where you randomly order something off the menu and then you get like, pig's ears or sheep brain or something that you didn't really want.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can identify something that is something you eat and order that way. That also works.
Even in the situation you described, you're going full send at that point anyways. You don't even have to say 这是什么 because you're going to say 这是什么, what is this? And they're going to reply, it was something you can't understand anyway. And so you just,
or maybe you understand like one word. Maybe you hear like 牛肉 or something and you're like, oh, that's beef.
Yeah.
I learned that,
Beef whatever, right? Who knows, right?
Well, but you might as well ask. You might as well
ask. But at the end of the day, you're going full send. You're going to be like, well, yeah, I want this, right? So it's great if they got those pictures and stuff, but maybe not always.
But I find that like if you communicate early on to the staff of the restaurant that you're willing to just try to communicate, even though your Chinese is somewhat limited, they often like have fun with it and they like really enjoy talking with you and like helping you. So like, don't be shy. Don't hold back. Just like do your best to communicate.
And I think that's a good overall approach, right? Is that you could be learning French or Spanish or other things, but as we've been in this industry for many moons. I've not heard of experiences, and many polyglots and interviewed tons of people and talked to people just about language learning all over the world. It seems that one of the unique things about learning Chinese is how encouraging people are. And
Yeah.
even if you just say ni hao, they're just like, oh, wow, your Chinese is so good, right? And don't let it get to your head, because it can, and it does sometimes. But they're just going to be so encouraging. So the fact that you say anything, you try, even you fail, they're just going to be much more, I don't know, I wouldn't say much more hospitable. They're just like, they're more willing to engage with you and work with you, even if your Chinese sucks. And it's okay. Everybody's Chinese sucks, right? It's just at different levels of suck, right? So you just got to get out there and go.
Yeah, and I feel like there's something charming about like beginner Chinese where the person is just really trying. Sometimes people like that like get along better with the locals than someone whose Chinese is really good, because the person whose Chinese is good just has very normal, everyday, boring conversations. Whereas the person who's struggling like has much more, I don't know, emotional, flavorful interactions with the locals sometimes. I've seen it, Jared. I've seen it.
John, also makes me think about you going on that trek through Yunnan, right? And that old guy is selling you fang bian mian for 20 kuai. That's your story. I wonder what his end of the story was. He's like, yeah, this Lao Ai came through and I made him fang bian mian for 20 kuai.
Well, good for him. Okay, so Jared, we're getting close to the end here, but we did want to say a few things about apps, because I know, nowadays there's so many AI tools and stuff, and you can just put the phone out and talk, and then it talks to them, and they talk to the phone talks back to you, blah, blah, blah. But is that really the experience you want to have traveling in China? Like, how much of your time traveling in China do you want with your face in front of the phone? I think that's worth thinking about.
I think to a degree can depend on how critical the situation is. Maybe if it's a situation where you're trying to buy a train ticket to Hangzhou and you want to make sure you get there quickly and in time, and there's some details you don't understand, that app might really come in handy, and it could save you a 4-hour train ride where you're getting on a train that's loading and unloading vegetables at every stop.
I would not give up that experience, Jared. But also, like maybe you have some medical issue and you really want to make sure you're being understood. Okay, cool. But like, you don't want to be that guy who's like in the restaurant being like, what is this? And like going through every item on the menu. You should be the guy who just points to a dish and is like, 我要这个. Don't hide behind the app more than you really need to.
And I think this is a balance. And I would say, just we're pointing out how critical a situation is versus, hey, I am out here in the wild and I'm going to try to get through this. There is growth in the struggle, and not just growth, but good times, as you hear a bunch of the stories that John and I are talking about, right?
There are good times. And I have faith, Jared, that even though technology, all this makes things a lot easier, and some of these stories couldn't happen nowadays, people are still good. People still want to communicate. And you're going to have a lot of fun if you just try to communicate.
But, the thing is that there are some times and places where you're not really going to get a signal. And a lot of these apps and everything that we're talking, you might be using for translation or assisting, they run in the cloud, right? You have to have internet connectivity. That is not always going to be the case. And on top of that, John, you talked about, your experience in Yunnan, going through like some small village. If you're in a big town or even just in medium towns and stuff, you're probably going to be able to get by with using leveraging technology. But there are still a number of places in China. You go out west in smaller towns and places, not a lot of people make it out there. But if you do, you find yourself in those places, you may be able to have experiences or some of these experiences that John and I have been telling you about.
And they might not have a good signal. Is that what you're trying to say?
And it might not have a good signal. They still do out there, man. It's crazy, but not always.
Anyway, we do hope that our listeners can come to China and see it for themselves, travel. It really is a great experience. Maybe you're not sure when it's going to happen, but if you can try to make it part of your Chinese learning journey, it makes such a difference.
Absolutely. And this gives you that opportunity. You study Chinese for so long, and it always feels like maybe, especially if you're not in China, you're studying Chinese and you feel like, oh, maybe how can I actually use this? Well, man, if you go to China, that's going to give you that chance to use it. And when you're there, Make sure you don't have that crippling crutch and you always feel like you have to rely on those apps every time. Get out there and explore, spread your wings, test your limits, and really try to use it. If you do, it's going to be a memorable experience and you're going to have some successes and failures, but that is all part of the experience. And that's what you need if you're really going to develop proficiency in the language.
Yeah, so we wholeheartedly recommend it. Maybe not today, maybe not even tomorrow, but someday we hope you can make it to China. And remember, you can learn Chinese.
You can learn Chinese.
You have been listening to the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. I'm Jared Turner, co-founder of Mandarin Companion, alongside my co-host John Pasden, co-founder of Mandarin Companion, founder of All Set Learning, the Chinese Grammar Wiki, and Sinosplice.com. If something in this episode clicked for you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with another Chinese learner. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. And don't forget to write us a review. If you have not tried a graded reader yet, this is your sign. Go grab one of our Mandarin Companion graded readers and start building some real fluency. Apologies to John Cena, we just ran out of time. The You Can Learn Chinese podcast is produced by myself, Jared Turner, and is edited by Jasper Chua. And of course, thanks to my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, John Pasden. See you next time.